the Battle of Giants comes to a head today in North America. I'm Gillyweed here, as always, with Dreadnought, and we're not even going to make you guys wait for the hype match, the match that we have been excited about all week long. We're getting started right away with No Tomorrow versus Gale Force eSports.
It is going to be an absolute blast. The two teams that are undefeated so far in North America. You know, for Gale Force, maybe not that surprising, but No Tomorrow even being able to take on Tempo Storm last week was insane.
It was. Being able to take them down. It was a close series. It was a close series for both of those teams versus Tempo Storm. Now, as we look at the North American standings, both of these teams are undefeated, sitting at 3 victories each. 0 losses. And that is so important when we start talking about qualification for the Western Clash. Now, the golden number these teams are trying to get to, 6. 6 is the cream of the crop, but 5 victories there is a possibility that you get 5 and still can qualify for the Western Clash, depending how standings shake out. And of course, that is only made better for both of these teams because they did defeat Tempo Storm last weekend. Yeah,
and it should be noted that because Gale Force has beaten both Tempo Storm and Roll20, if they get the win here over No Tomorrow, that again only furthers them down the road. But if No Tomorrow can take out Gale Force, suddenly we find ourselves with what was like a top 3 question, now kind of this top 4. How is it going to work out?
Yeah, and now, of course, as always, we have 2 series in North America to look forward to, but because of the absolute hype that we have from this match in particular, it is so exciting that we get to start things off with our marquee matchup because you can anticipate seeing that both of these guys, when they played versus Tempo Storm, went all the way to game number 5. Very close series. Really, honestly, No Tomorrow several times may not have come out being able to win that series.
Yeah, it was like 2 games specifically where it was like, oh, Tempo is going to be able to win this, and that No Tomorrow was just barely able to hold on there, showing not only the kind of the mental strength here of this group because they are hungry. They are so very young in the North American scene.
Now, of course, we have 2 series in North America, but looking at the schedule today, in case you missed it, we started off after HGC Korea with HGC Europe, 2 3-0 victories, but not at all the 3-0 victories we expected to get, right, Dread?
Yeah, Tricked eSports managing to 3-0 Team Liquid. Talk about a mix-up there within the European scene.
And then after that, Team Expert beating Playing Ducks too. Still Playing Ducks unable to win even a single game versus Expert.
Yeah, just being able to shut them down has been so amazing. But again, at the end of today in North America, we have Team Freedom taking on Superstars. But first, it is Gale Force eSports and No Tomorrow. Again, the hype is real here.
Forged in the fire of the Crucible, No Tomorrow emerged reborn with a new warrior player who gave up, he sacrificed his position and is already making a name for himself as a warrior player in the North American scene. But there is another warrior we have to mention, one who is a legend in North America, maybe forgotten for a little while, but not really, because he's rejoined now with Fan on Gale Force eSports and is rebuilding that legend, not with a sideways entomb, not with a give him the axe Muradin in the back, but with a hook.
And even though, you know, King Caffeine, he's flashy, he's got the hooks left and right, I think we can't ignore the fact that Equinox is a huge focal point for this series.
Yes.
That, though we talk about all the advantages, the teams that they beat in the past and everything they like, the biggest thing that Gale Force eSports has to fear in this series is their ex-teammate now is gone over to No Tomorrow, looks completely reborn, and suddenly the greatest resource to take out GFE is on the opposing side of the battlefield.
Equinox may very well be, at the end of the series, proven to be Gale Force eSports kryptonite. I cannot wait any longer, so Dread, let the games begin.
We've been able to succeed lately is partially due to the roster change, getting Equinox in and having his shot calling, but also just our team environment is so great right now. Like, we all get along and we enjoy playing the game together, and I think it's really been able to push us to another level.
Pretty excited to face my old teammates. I think it'll be fun facing the other strongest team in HGC. I think if we're playing at our best, we're definitely a better team than they are. And I think if we beat them, we'll probably go undefeated for sure.
They have the same weakness that they've always really had. And if they try and team fight us, they try and scrap, they're going to lose 9 times out of 10. We don't care about GFE, like GF free, like GF whatever, like it's all about being number 1. Like we We're just looking at the top of the standings, and we want to look down at everyone else.
No Tomorrow looks really strong this phase. They've proven that they can be a top contender, beating out Tempo Storm last week. The thing about them is that Equinox really brought a lot to their team. He's a shot caller, and he's also mechanically very good at the melee heroes. I think we have a little bit of an advantage though, because we know what they're doing, because Equinox is their shot caller and he took over a lot of our mentalities and strategies, and we recognize our strategies when we see them, so I think we will have a bit of an edge there. We just have to make sure that we can kind of counter our own strategies, and I think if draft goes as according to plan, I would not be scared of fighting them. As long as we can keep them off of their most comfortable heroes, I would be confident even straight up fighting them.
You heard from Fan how important the drafting will be for this series. Both of these teams know each other very, very well, but almost giving Equinox an edge in that regard because he does know several members of Gale Force eSports. But then again, a lot revolves around Equinox on the team that he's on, especially because he is the shot caller. So it's hard to decide who really has the edge in this matchup of knowing each other more.
Yeah, it is very difficult to kind of break down, and a lot of it goes down to how much influence did Equinox actually have on Gale Force before. If it was a large portion of it, then suddenly you could be like, well, that actually gives a lot over to Gale Force. They would understand that. But, you know, typically on those higher-end teams in North America, it's not just one man running everything. It's a collaborative effort with one person being the final voice. And if that was Equinox or not, in the end, I would say that gives Equinox an upper hand purely based on the disparity of skill level in phase number 1.
Well, we haven't just been talking about this match. The players have been talking about the match too, throwing out some spicy tweets to get hype for the match. So let's take a look at them. First off, from Equinox himself. Super excited to face my old teammates today, but hope Gale Force can rebound after this loss.
Got him. Already popping off there with the confidence here from Equinox. And look at on the other side of the table here, Gale Force own Mike Udall. I'm really excited to play versus my old teammate Equinox, excuse me, but hopefully he doesn't die to minions this time.
Woo!
Yeah, you know, that's one of those moments where I talk about how you have the awkward misclick and you kind of forget it. Your teammates never do. And
they will never let you live it down.
so awesome to see that out of Mike. And it's nice to see that kind of banter here between these players. You know, there's definitely respect on both sides of the table, but both teams know that they want to win and are comfortable going, you know, like just spitting a little game.
Yeah, it's time to get into it. We've got the battleground ready, the first battleground of this best of 5. And it's a good one. Gale Force eSports choosing Cursed Hollow. We have Braxis Holdout as the Respect ban from No Tomorrow. Meanwhile, Dragonshire as the ban from Gale Force. You know, that Braxis ban is kind of interesting because No Tomorrow, with Equinox on the team, hasn't been afraid to pick it even in the past.
They haven't been afraid to pick it, but again, on that first focal point that we brought up about how much influence has Equinox had with the members of Gale Force eSports, I think that already shows a little bit of at least No Tomorrow's interpretation of that problem, is they genuinely feel, yes, Equinox knows a bit of how Gale Force works, but they just think that Gale Force still can run that strategy even better, even with that resource now available to No Tomorrow. So I feel like that is them saying we got more out of this deal with Equinox on our roster than Gale Force did by ended up, you know, knowing what Equinox can do on the side of No Tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm super pumped to get into Cursed Hollow between these two teams because there has been a lot of Genji play on either side. If it's not banned, expect that to be very high up. There's a possibility that maybe we get something like Fans Greymane along with K1 Pro's Li Ming. The backline synergy between those two has been incredible right from the start for Gale Force.
Yeah, it's Gale Force by picking up those old Cloud9 members back together. The only time we've seen 3 different iterations of them, the only 2 that have ever really stood out to me where it feels like you can see a flavor of the past is between Fan and K1 Pro. I completely agree with you there. Yes, they do have players who have synergy from their history together, but the only 2 to really thrive with it is when they're together, especially in a gank squad. Any kind of map where you know those 2 can roam on their own, expect kills to happen.
Yeah, and on the other side, talking about synergy, we're looking at Casanova and Equinox. Things started off, and you could see the potential of the frontline synergy between them, but still areas to improve. They're going to need to be perfection today versus Gale Force eSports if they want a chance of winning this series.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Perfection is going to be needed, but here we are. Again, this is draft for game number 1 between Gale Force eSports and No Tomorrow on Cursed Hollow. So we know we have you referred to the fact that we got a lot of Genji between these two teams. Other things maybe to be considering, Illidan is one that kind of stands out. The Abathur is going to be a high focus, especially now that No Tomorrow has committed that Dahaka ban. I would expect high priority on that if he makes it through this ban phase.
Yeah, so much so that I wouldn't be surprised at the same time to see Gale Force ban Abathur here. But then again, that opens up being able to give Talking Trees Genji right away. There's so many considerations in the meta, as well as the fact that we did have the balance patch come into effect here. So there are some subtle changes, things like Tormented Souls having the increased cooldown.
And when we just heard that interview, Fan noted a bit of specific heroes we give to the other side. As long as we remove those comforts, already GFE has shown a bit of the mentality that the comfort picks are going to be a problem in the series. Talking Trees and the Genji. I think it's important enough that I wouldn't be surprised if Gale Force does commit to that ban here, solely based on the fact that that is such a huge playmaking resource that we see No Tomorrow pick up.
Yeah.
Looks like they agree, they get the ban, but way later than I would have thought here in this game.
There are a lot of things to consider, like we mentioned, and that is another one. We have to talk about Task Tracer for No Tomorrow. Right now, they are 4-4 with the combo. They are deadly. Equinox mentioned that because he used to be on a team with Talking Trees in the past, Gust or Bust, they had that instant synergy of their Task Tracer that they could bring right into the team. And now they've got one half of the duo.
They do have one half of the duo, but there's still a lot of high priority picks available in this meta. So Gale Force now, they can commit, again, things like the Abathur are available, but they have to now go, you know, their TAS is such an open-ended hero that it doesn't give any information. That is part of the reason why he's such a valuable pick at the top half of almost, now it feels like every single draft in the North American scene. I would like to see Gale Force focus on to at least a global play here with the Haka removed. I like it. Just Abathur, what? I don't know. I don't even know if I care. I just really think that that resource has got to be taken away.
Yeah, potentially an Abathur Greymane. And Nubarak still up as well. So is Uther. But there's Abathur Arthas. It's another good combo because you can even clone Arthas and have the double slows on the front line. But you mentioned that there's a lot of pairings for Tassadar, yes. But so far, No Tomorrow, if they've had the opportunity to pair with Tracer, they've only done that. They've only ever had the pairing with Tracer because they're so confident with it.
So then we are assuming that this is going to be a Tracer in this rotation for No Tomorrow. Falstad will be brought along for the ride. High priority onto the Falstad, something we don't see too frequently. But it is kind of necessary based on the fact that, again, we see the Dahaka banned out. The Abathur's been picked elsewhere. A lot of the globals don't work. You could be like, well, what about the Illidan? You want the Tracer to be focused solely by the Tassadar, not splitting that shielding target and enabling those heroes. So it makes sense to be able to see that adjustment that high up.
Yep, and No Tomorrow are also undefeated with Falstad. So now we've got 4-0 with Task Tracer, 3-0 with Falstad, Jason playing that Falstad. So it's good heroes for No Tomorrow. It may not be necessarily the standard meta for everyone else here in North America, but it's things that have worked for No Tomorrow. What's up for Gale Force eSports? How can they slow down No Tomorrow in this draft? Casanova is a potential because he is a newer warrior player. There might be some things they can take away. They're considering the Anubarak, which, by the way, has made it all the way to the second ban phase.
Yeah, it's something that we don't see too frequently here at HGC North America. No Tomorrow snap bans out the Illidan. Again, that's not surprising based on the fact that Abathur, you have the Arthas, who's a direct counter. He actually synergizes well with Illidan. It's one of those kind of inverse Tassadar effects. He's great with and poor against. Arthas is also great with, and but he's good against in the opposite manner. So not surprised to see the Illidan here for No Tomorrow. But what are we going to see? I think Greymane is inevitable. It's just going to be what beyond that point. We still have Uther, by the way, to be picked up here, which, you know, I expect it just to be an Uther Greymane then.
Yeah, and then they can have a Li Ming at the end because they know that the final two picks of No Tomorrow have to be warrior and support. They've drafted all of their damage so highly that they can leave leaning to the end if that's what they want for K1 Pro, or something else, possibly even a Lunara because of her slows and the fact that she can combo really well with an Arthas.
Yeah, the one thing I don't want to see from Gale Force is them to wait on the support pick. I can understand the thought process behind it, but if they do so, the only reason I can see that is it's going to be a late Brightwing. Instead, it's going to be an early Brightwing, not going with the Uther, waiting for it even later, or possibly leaving it up as a last pick for a double support, but I don't think so with the Abathur. It's just unrealistic what the Abathur picked up. So they're saving their last damage to, again, be able to deal with it. But a Brightwing that high up, not what I expected. Thought it would have been the Uther.
Oh, Akaface, you lover of fairy dragons, you, bringing back the Brightwing, but it does help even more with the global game at the same time. Final 2 picks for No Tomorrow. We're waiting Casanova's hero, the Warrior, and then the support for Tiger JK. Tiger JK, I mean, every support except Brightwing is still up. That was a support. That was a Brightwing over Malfurion, Brightwing over Uther, but it is the new Brightwing.
I just feel like it's got to be on the side of No Tomorrow. You know, it's either going to still commit to that or it's going to be the Karazim. No Tomorrow, Tiger JK loves Karazim. He plays that above not every other support. He still has some respect for the traditional prioritization.
When you can hit palms like he can, why not?
I mean, why not? We'll see if he goes for it here. There it is,
Yep.
the Karazim Stitches for No Tomorrow. And last for GFE, what is the backliner that they desire? They still technically, though we do assume this is a backliner, it could be a front. You can argue into a double melee with Greymane as the solo backline, especially when you have Brightwing as the only support, using the Abathur Brightwing cross-supporting and just letting those frontliners be self-sustaining on their own. So I wouldn't be totally against another melee here, but damage is necessary no matter what that pick is.
Yeah, that's true. We have had one instance of K1 Pro playing the Greymane when we had a more melee-heavy composition before, and when you consider who... Because King Caffeine has played one game of Arthas, but for the most part, when Arthas is drafted for Gale Force, it's Michael Udall's hero, and he's playing the solo laner with it. And by the way, I talked a lot about the undefeated nature of a lot of No Tomorrow's picks, but Gale Force eSports is 5 out of 5 with Arthas, and that's across 2 players, so that's also equally impressive.
Yeah, that is very impressive to be able to split that up, and
Nice
it's going to
call.
be the Varian. Another frontliner, but not so much on the damage heavy. It's going to be Lockdown, focusing on that taunt to make sure Tracer cannot be a problem. I mean, it makes sense a lot because Falstad being the only other major damage dealer on the side of No Tomorrow, you know, ignoring the fact that we can expect Iron Fists out of Tiger JK. But he really does it. You can't count, you know, Karazim as that damage up until 16 mark. Then I can see you being like, well, we don't lack in damage, but without way of 100 fists, he just doesn't hit the spike reasonably enough to be able to justify it.
And it's very likely that he never goes way of 100 fists now, needing Cleansing Dash, Cleansing Touch versus Varian, especially with the taunt.
Yeah, with the taunt that we see up in this game, but I wouldn't put it past him. I've talked a lot with Tiger personally about like what he thinks about Karazim. I'm not saying that he won't go into the Cleansing Touch, but he absolutely adores being able to trade positively into most heroes, and what that enables his team fight. You know, the entire team fight has to be pressured differently. Specifically, why I would make a counter-argument just into this matchup is because Brightwing's on the other side. Brightwing can't burst heal out that target that you punch. Like, if any let's give an example here. If Greymane is the one moving up, one rotation of double Q, Brightwing has to stay with him to be able to support him, keep him alive. So, you know, maybe get that, but I agree that, you know, Cleansing Touch into the taunt could be a really safe choice for him as well.
Yeah, it's pretty good to be able to have that versus a taunt, but I'm interested in how this variant's going to work out for Gale Force, because when you look over at the side of No Tomorrow, Parry is going to do a lot versus the composition that No Tomorrow has to be able to deal with the damage, but do they themselves have enough damage to be able to deal with No Tomorrow after that?
I think a lot of it's going to come down to, most likely, we see just a lot of cursed bullet pressure up onto the front, and that's enough to justify, right? So it's a damage in a different sense. It's not whether or not they can actually get the kill on the backline target. It's more scare everybody's health pool away up in the front line to not really matter, or luckily burst out a Tracer. I am afraid. I do think Gale Force picked a pretty heavy, you know, intensive composition when it comes to burden of execution, but they are, all teams in North America, I think I have more faith in them to be able to run it than anybody else.
Well, let's see if Gale Force eSports can get the picks, blow up the members of No Tomorrow, or if No Tomorrow will walk away with game number 1.
So this is it. In the blue is going to be Gale Force eSports. We're going to have Mike Udall repping the front line there as the Arthas. Fan, is on the back line. He's got the gray main, and then always, again, is King Caffeine playing the Warriors. He has the variant. Some mix-up here. K1 Pro onto an Abathur, something that it's not unheard of, but you know, it's pretty rare to be able to see that. And then Brightwing by Akaface.
Meanwhile, No Tomorrow's in the red with Tiger JK playing Karazim. Up next, Casanova playing Stitches, Jason playing Falstad, Talking Trees on Tassadar, and rounding things out, Tracer, of course, played by Equinox. Yeah, K1 Pro, haven't seen him on Arthas, I believe, or Arthas, definitely not on Arthas, but Abathur in Phase 2 so far. But remembering how much damage he can do, and with his unique build, he loves the stab talents at 7 and 13. He can top damage charts easily as an Arthas for the team.
Yeah, and one thing also with a lot of those members, you know, moving around, players like K1 Pro, they usually fill a different role for different teams at times, so he's played a little bit of everything. I know we've seen him on Abathur in the past. It's just not one of those heroes. Again, you expect him on the damage dealers, not those specialists, and this is Transcendence Karazim.
So talk me through that. Did Tiger JK mention Transcendence at all?
He didn't. I can tell you this much. I've been arguing, I think Transcendence is busted to him.
Okay.
I straight up, if I made the same argument I made to you on cast, that I think with CC-less frontliners being in the rise, I do think Transcendence and Insight has more value than it's given credit.
Okay, but there's a lot of CC in the frontliners
yes,
of Gale
so
Force.
that's the big question mark for me.
Yeah.
I will tell you that into an Arthas specifically, that's enough for me to be like, I don't know if I love this. But this adjustment here, it's obviously thought out. He didn't take it right away. They took a while to discuss whether or not they want it. It makes me torn because, again, like I was like, oh, you know what? He took an idea and it's like, I can explain this and like, this was mine, I got you. But now I'm like, I don't know. I will tell you this much. Transcendence is underrated. I will tell you that. It is the supporting and healing output of Karazim, again, with CC-less frontline is insane. But into the Brightwing Arthas, this is a colossal risk for No Tomorrow.
For those of you who may be newer to Heroes of the Storm, Transcendence used to be the go-to for Karazim.
Yes.
Every third basic attack heals the lowest nearby allied hero for an amount. So he is more focused on being able to continually provide more healing output for his team than otherwise the Iron Fist build of just adding damage.
Yeah, and I'll keep track of any adjustments we see from him. I do expect to see a different 16 from both of what we discussed now, depending on how the game plays out. I don't know. I can see the Cleansing Touch. It's going to be Cleansing Touch or it's going to be Echo of Heaven, focusing on the AoE supporting. Again, you can get away with this more because you have a Tassadar to be able to aid with some of the burst. Karazim makes up for the support in the long run.
Speaking of Tassadar, lots of changes came in the balance patch for him. He's always changing our Tassadar. Lower damage output overall once you finish the first reward of Templar as well. It's 125% instead of the old 150%. And then both his Plasma Shield and Kala's Embrace, which still was taken now, have a less healing output of the Lifesteal Plasma Shield, but still a good addition to pick up at 4 because of having a lot of auto attack focused heroes on the team.
We also, dude, these builds, I'm excited for this matchup. You know, the
Worgen
fact
build!
I was going to say,
Worgen build!
Is Eyes in the Dark picked up here? Like, everything about this game right now is so different, but I love it. Tiger JK ends up getting the channel. Nice heal out, but Equinox, triple Q, Calf is out of range just barely to be able to hit the tip of that Q. No hook landing here for Casanova. First tribute going over to No Tomorrow.
And that is some relief, definitely. They want to get ahead in the early game because they're against the Abathur composition of Gale Force eSports. So any early victories, any early leads that they can get is a necessity with the composition they have, and they understand that, especially with the Tracer task. So they're invading in. Michael Udall's caught, body blocked by Equinox. Falstad flying in. The shielding was there from the Carapace. Michael Udall dodges and lives. The hook pulls in Fan, but No Tomorrow just barely gets the kill.
And they end up getting the pick a fraction of a second before that level 4 came into play there. We talked about Eyes in the Dark, and whenever you get that disengage after a Stitches hook, if you're already in Worgen form, they can't hit you whatsoever. It's a reapplied stealth until the animation finishes, which means that only territorial spells like a Tassadar's W onto the ground, that Storm, can hit you. Nice hook. Sadly, no follow-up, Gilly.
Also, it's King Caffeine, and he now has his shield wall down. Michael Udall has come back in, healed up, but No Tomorrow are there to save Casanova and get him out. Meanwhile, Jason has been applying constant pressure against the structures of Gale Force eSports, making sure that he can start opening up things like forts especially, and trying to take those structures down, because Abathur did not go into the stab build that we normally see from K1 Pro, sticking with the meta that we've seen from a lot of Abathurs across North America in Phase 2 and getting Mule.
Yeah, that's a nice variation to see out of K1 Pro. I definitely, on maps like Sky Temple, where we've seen a lot more Abathur in North America, where Mule directly impacts the way that the map is going to be played out, I totally understand that direction, but I did expect K1 Pro to move into that stab build with such good hat targets across the board between Arthas and Greymane and a clone. And then, you know, a Mule is not necessarily too effective on a map like Curse too often, so we'll see if it works out for them. But now, they're on the chase here. Nice polymorph, Equinox, that's all his dashes. And they're going to be able to scoot on out. Casanova is the only vulnerable target. Penny Hook, not today.
But no, tomorrow, do not get, don't make the rotation in time. Don't realize that Gale Force eSports is there at their boss. And even with the anchoring of King Caffeine in the bush, there was no way that No Tomorrow were going to be able to get in time to get onto the boss point. So now Gale Force eSports has a boss pushing against No Tomorrow. Falstad's there trying to defend. But this gives a moment for Gale Force eSports to try to stop No Tomorrow from getting a curse.
And they're doing their best as they move up, getting the zone out here. Casanova just out of slow range, but there goes Tracer onto the backside. Parting Gifts left. Jason now is looking to join in. Throws out the damage on the fan, forcing him to be in a terrible spot. Now Jason waiting onto the wayside, looking to move up. Nice hook onto Calf.
Equinox was low. Jason's now caught into the slows of Michael Udall, but stays safe. The members of No Tomorrow are really low, but that flank was an important part of being able to allow No Tomorrow to stay and fight around this tribute. The problem is Jason coming in wasn't there as long for Soak, and now Gale Force are just about to get heroic abilities.
Yeah, they're just about to get it, especially with Brightwing getting that last delay. Equinox moves up. He could confirm the kill on a Brightwing, but he doesn't. Also, this is a Blink heal, not an Emerald Wind, picked up for the members of Gale Force. And Curse now for No Tomorrow. But you got to ask yourself, what are you going to obtain here, No Tomorrow, without having the 10? Sieging is not necessarily the most optimal decision.
Brightwing has shifted down to Abathur to help out against that lane. No Tomorrow, no heroics. There's a Mule there too, so they're keeping it. No Tomorrow have a curse, but are not getting what you would like to get done with it.
Yeah, so when you have and maybe, you know, that weird disadvantage and a question of what you can do with this curse moment, it was very well decided that there was at least 2 members up on mid on the side of Gale Force. No Tomorrow can just flank. You collapse the entire fort. There's nothing going to shoot at you. You've already taken out the front wall. Talking about a collapse, Casanova, they're up on top as they just round out their heroics. But at least it cost Gale Force a 4.
Yeah, it does seem like No Tomorrow felt the pressure to do something with this curse. Got a little bit greedy, had Stitches up there. We know Stitches doesn't have the best sort of escape mechanisms, just maybe the movement speed off of Putrid Bile. So Gale Force take him out. They get the Giants because they weren't under any sort of immediate stress from the curse. They were even able to get their Giants and now pushing along with that up into the top. No Tomorrow still hoping that they could salvage the situation by taking out the fort in mid.
It looks like they'll be able to. Nobody for Gale Force is in position in time. Or, you know, one Oracle reveal, even after dropping the Oracle. Caffeine is enough to be able to scare the members of No Tomorrow off. You see K1 Pro say thank you very much. We're going to lay down a fat value mule here, and the members of No Tomorrow are just cycling around the map. They found themselves an entire level down at this stage of the game, again, purely based on when they decided to capture that curse and because they lost more than they gained.
And now we get to see potentially how Gale Force want to execute this composition. They have Ultimate Evolution for a double Greymane. They have Curse Bullet to follow up with a taunt if the target is going to be up in the front line like Casanova, even a Polymorph too. We'll have to see. Putrid Bile goes down. Curse Bullet was already used.
Yeah, and I don't even think it landed.
I don't think so either.
So that resource not there could hurt Gale Force eSports, but it's only 20 seconds, so it's back to taunt on the Equinox, but again, the palm. Therefore, Tiger JK saves him. Gust was used on top of it, so a bit of miscommunication, and Equinox feels the wrath of K1 Pro's clone.
Yeah, that thing will chunk you with its extra attack damage. So you have to be careful. And of course, K1 Pro doesn't mind using it in that to put the hurt onto Equinox and scare him back. No Tomorrow has been scared away from getting their boss. They're going to hook in Michael Udall, who drops the army, and Gale Force is ready to go.
Curse Bullet and Casanova gets blown up. Now this camp going over to Gale Force. That hook onto an Arthas. Maybe, you know, not the most optimal target. Usually the one you want to be running away from. Granted, that was a great job by Gale Force getting the teleport and realizing they can convert that even without the Talontier. Talking about Talontiers, GFB has now found theirs. They found a taunt as well onto Equinox, and this time, no Palm to save them.
Just up in 7, boss going down. Can No Tomorrow stop Gale Force eSports from stealing their boss?
Jason.
This is really scary. This is a possibility of getting forced into more staggered deaths. And with King Caffeine and the follow-up of Michael Udall there, No Tomorrow do not take the chance, giving up the boss.
They forfeit the boss, and now they have to be able to stop the bleeding because Gale Force eSports got only one small advantage and completely opened up this map into their favor. You oftentimes see Gale Force kind of going, can we take this fight, and feeling out whether or not they can, and then deciding to stick around for long periods of time. And now what was a 1-level lead is creeping up towards closer than that too, and that is K1 Pro on the Abathur. He's done a very good job of calling his team when he needs the delay, so he has the body soak, he has the hat soak on somewhere else under the map. And No Tomorrow, again, just finds themselves, yes, they were able to get the first 3 tributes, but that's about all you can say they've managed to make happen in this game.
No Tomorrow are having a really hard time really finding any sort of kill. This would be the first. They did have the pulse bomb go down with Quantum Spike, so it chunked through the hit points of Michael Udall, but the best news for No Tomorrow is that they forced out Army of the Dead. There's a boss up and available. Tassador's here too, but with Shattering Throw for Varian, the taunt Curse Bullet is working out brilliantly as a combo now for Gale Force. Once they hit 10, they could just blow up anybody. You've seen Equinox either go down or have to proc and take the palm, and then even Stitches is a target, whereas it's harder for No Tomorrow to be able to figure out who they can kill.
No Tomorrow is going to start the boss as an act of desperation to be able to force this fight against Gale Force eSports. It's down below the 50%, but it looks like they're going to have to give it up. We'll see if Gale Force actually keeps it leashed or not. It's in their best interest to kind of dabble around and make No Tomorrow second guess themselves, thanks to the fact that they have that Abathur I was talking about before, and they're going to. Tribute's given up, but again, that means nothing here. It's all about this boss.
Falstad has flown in. Get into position to push back Gale Force.
No Tomorrow has to win this fight, or this game's going to get out of control.
Polymorph 2, they do it with the gust. No Tomorrow take the boss and get out alive.
Man, that was just, think about what this map looks like if Gale Force wins that. You take this and you're like, thank you, No Tomorrow, for starting that fight, winning that fight, and then, you know, winning, we'll leave it at that. At least you managed to pick up the boss. But Gale Force gets that boss, suddenly you're like, oh, they're 16 and they're sieging into us with a 2.5 level lead. They have an Abathur. It just was so high risk. I'm very thankful that No Tomorrow was able to stall this out and at least push it a little bit farther. But the game is still very much now Gale Force eSports.
Yeah, because every time No Tomorrow gets an advantage, it's at a disadvantage at the same time. They get a curse, but don't have 10 for the start of it. They get a boss, but don't have 16. Gale Force are happy to try to make No Tomorrow fight here, especially because the top keep is already low, and Abathur has been continually putting on the pressure in that lane.
This is a huge play for No Tomorrow. Equinox is in position. They can get the dismounts properly here. There's the reveal from Trees. There's the dismount, and they get it. So at least they got themselves what is a unrealistic tribute to gain if it didn't spawn in what is almost a perfect spawn for them. Because, again, 16 talent tier, there's no way they poke around a tribute and go, hey, can we take this fight? And now they have bought what is about a minute and a half worth of time to gain the experience back and at least set it to even.
Executioner only adds a salt to the wound, being able to blow up whoever they want. The Curse Bullet went out, threw out some damage toward No Tomorrow. Falstad went up to the top. That top keep is getting low for No Tomorrow. They do not want catapult pressure against them. Here they go with another combo. Tracer is gone. No palm this time.
No palm used there for Tiger JK and a kill gain. Fan, though, pressured out. A little bit of poke. Again, talking Trees, or excuse me, Tiger JK without the Iron Fist is not nearly as intimidating as a Stitch's follow-up. And so this is why we see this lack of pressure. All the damage responsibilities do fall onto the shoulders of Tracer and the Falstad, and we aren't going to have that 16 late spike I was referring to before based on the adjustment of the level 1.
Castor has the nullification. Once again, the combo comes out for Gale Force eSports, but this time it's Casanova, and he is fine. Fans there. This is the real gray main. But no, Jason was rooted, goes back.
They just need the 16 talent here for No Tomorrow before they can take any fight. And then luckily they will find that before Curse Point. It's a curse point for both sides. So the next important thing here is about the bosses. What do we have? Bottom boss is 2 minutes away, but top boss 20 seconds up until that spawns. Gilly, we might find ourselves with what is a half tribute, half boss play. And if Gale Force wants to give up the curse for a boss, it's a winning trade, but not the other way around.
Yeah, because that keep is so low.
Yeah, it's just, and you can then buy a little bit of time, waste a curse once more. No Tomorrow can't waste any kind of advantage whatsoever. They have to be looking for game-ending pushes. So again, though this looks closer to even, it's really not with Gale Force's composition, having the Abathur to only further the experience. And they're now going to start this boss. At least Jason knows.
Yeah, there's wiggle room for Gale Force that does not exist for No Tomorrow, especially because that 2-level lead too. The taunt comes in, but it's sort of baited all the way back, and that gets Equinox back to safety. First level was thrown out.
The worst spawning for No Tomorrow too, because now it's a boss curse play. They have to decide one or the other.
Volstead, Jason, no!
Gust, he saved himself, and they now know 3 members are on top, and they started boss late. But there is no Gust to be able to steal the boss, Gilly.
There is not. Hammering shows the danger. Akaface delaying.
He's gonna die.
Can he take him down? There's a pulse bomb.
There's one blink. He has ice block. He can blink back to the minion, but that's it. He needs minions.
He's going to fish it.
He's out. Parting Gift seals the deal. Now look at this. K1 Pro there with the clone. Looking to scare them off. They stopped. They got cursed and they stopped the boss. They did it.
Oh my goodness. No Tomorrow making the very play they absolutely needed to make, and they still have their keep alive. But it's go time. They have to make something happen with this curse.
Yeah, it's just one of those congratulations. You now have the opportunity to set the game to even. That is what we see here for No Tomorrow for the next 27 seconds until Brightwing's back. They look like they're now going to concentrate up on the bottom key. That looks like Trees does reveal Fan, but they aren't going to be able to sniff it out completely. Caffeine just gets dismounted, and there it is. They're going to move up to the keep. But they only have 13 seconds, Gilly. A very slow rotation for them.
They have to take this down. They cannot afford to let the mule heal this keep up yet again. The mid pressure now dealing damage to the mid fort. No Tomorrow can move on up and just take that out. Even focusing some damage on the mid towers if they would like. A level lead still is Gale Force eSports, but there is a boss to retreat to for Gilly, No Tomorrow.
They're about 30 seconds too late because that boss on bottom just spawned. So imagine a world where No Tomorrow takes that bottom keep, immediately top bosses, and threatens bottom boss with level 20s, and it's in a curse lane. Like, they actually have an opportunity to end the game. Now they find themselves, they have to bait this top boss. And Gale Force at least sniffed it out before, you know, too aggressive of positioning. 20 still going to be creeped up on slowly but surely thanks to K1 Pro, and again, Akaface is off on those side lanes soaking.
Yeah, No Tomorrow is running out of time to get a boss if they want to. Do they sneak down and hope to sneak the boss bottom?
No, they had to do that in the middle of that curse. They had to get the keep and immediately go, okay, let's go for a double boss play. And all that comes down to one of those just inconvenient timing by the end of the curse and into this.
Brightwing face shifted up. Falstad sort of showed himself and then quickly left away like he was trying to show that he was there. No Tomorrow are going to be able to get this bottom boss.
But they have to end the game right now with it. That's the thing. It's only an 18-minute boss. They're down 20 advantage, and a 5 versus 5 on the core at this stage of the game is not necessarily over.
But it's a boss that goes straight to core instead of... Gale Force is still working on this boss.
Yes, and so because they captured it so late, No Tomorrow has a huge advantage. But notice how they aren't getting damage on the core right now. It doesn't mean anything. They'll still make it back in time, and now Gale Force moves past the boss, all ends with 20 advantage, and wins the fight. It's not over yet.
No Tomorrow has to win a fight without 20, and they've lost to Stitches in the blink of an eye with the taunt curse bullet combo. Things are falling apart for No Tomorrow.
Now the boss on top is going to do more work than this. Equinox is all ending on the core. That is absolute panic coming out from them. They realize that they are just have no idea how to end this game. They're going to try, though. No Tomorrow is stepping up.
No Gust for 40 seconds. No Tomorrow on the core. It's falling to 88%, still going down.
Nice
the
palm.
The palm. Falstad stays alive. 50 and falling is the core dread.
30, it's going down. 17, they still do it. 5 versus 4. They managed to be able to all in there at the very end. No Tomorrow keeping up the confidence levels, even when I couldn't.
No Tomorrow makes some of the craziest, riskiest core calls, but it's always able to work for them because Equinox says without hesitation, they are always on the same page. One person makes the core call and they are all 100% fully committed. And to see a team that is frankly brand new as a 5-man unit with a new shot caller be able to come in right away and make those kinds of calls is so impressive.
That's the first game out of all. Talking part 1, part 2 of phase 1, and now what we've seen out of phase number 2 so far. Hands down the best shot calling we've ever seen. It's the only game we've ever seen won because somebody out-shot called the other team, and that was No Tomorrow in that game. Mainly looking at the tribute, understanding who can win the 1v1 into Brightwing, and who she absolutely does not want to face, and who's the only target going to be down there. Then going trading up, stalling out there, and then we saw it in the double boss play. Feigning a boss on the top half with Falstead, the global, and also the one person you don't want to be standing around while you're taking the boss, conveniently fly away, fake it, and then be able to win that rotation. It still was not perfect. You saw Casanova never should risk that. That was step 1 of how only way you lose that game, and they executed perfectly or poorly, depending on how you word it. So there's still things to clean up. But that, if they continue that, I just don't honestly know how, in Equinox's words, I agree. If they shot call at that level, if they win again this series, they don't understand how they don't go undefeated. And I agree, because nobody in North America is doing what we just witnessed.